Hello and welcome to a new episode on Sadhana World Foundation. As you know, we care about crafting young lives. We present them stories drawn from our folk tales and lessons in history which are anchored on moral. We think that these stories contain tremendous amount of teachings which we as young children and young adults can incorporate, can inculcate in our lives and emerge as stronger and better human beings. This is the month of September. We just celebrated the festival of Onam. People from Kerala, the people who believe in the Malayali tradition, they all celebrate Onam. They celebrate this festival to welcome a king called Mahabali, who is embedded in our folk tales. Beautiful story. Let me describe this folk tale. There are many teachings in this story which can shape all our lives. Once upon a time, there was a king called Mahabali, who was a demon king, but he stood for justice, he stood for equality. He ruled the kingdom with grace, with a lot of benevolence. Everybody liked him. He was, of course, extremely powerful. The kingdom was extremely prosperous. He was extremely generous. He used to give people whatever they asked for. It was said that nobody returns empty-handed from Mahabali's court. He became so powerful that even the gods and goddesses in the heaven were scared of him. There were a few battles, and in many of those battles, Mahabali was winning. The gods and goddesses were scared of Mahabali. They all went to Lord Vishnu and made their case that Mahabali one day will start ruling the heaven and the gods and goddesses will lose their significance. They requested Lord Vishnu to come and re-establish order in this world where the human beings and the demons can continue to live in the world, live in the earth, and they don't come to the heaven. Their case was that Mahabali is becoming egoistic, is becoming powerful, is not really respecting the kingdom, the boundaries of the kingdom. Probity in his life is going away. So the earth is in danger. That was their argument. And Vishnu agreed to take the form of a new being and come to this world to teach a lesson to Mahabali. So Vishnu came as a dwarf Brahmin to this world, and he found that Mahabali is ruling the kingdom of this earth with all the good things that one can expect from the king. But he could understand that king is extremely powerful and is egoistic, is not willing to heed to others' advice. So the dwarf Brahmin appeared in the king's court. The king was conducting his session of giving away things to people, those who came to his court begging for things. So the dwarf Brahmin appeared in the court and begged for alms. King Mahabali said, "Dwarf Brahmin, go on and ask whatever you want. Rest assured that you will get whatever you ask." So Lord Vishnu, in the form of the dwarf Brahmin, who is currently identified as Vaman. In fact, it was the fifth incarnation of Lord Vishnu in the first incarnation as a human form, appeared, and he asked for just 3 paces of land from Mahabali. Mahabali said, "That's all you want, dwarf Brahmin?" He said, "Yes." So Mahabali granted what Vaman wanted. And Vaman was no ordinary Brahmin, no ordinary dwarf. So he spread which covered the entire earth, entire kingdom of Mahabali. Mahabali could realize that he is no ordinary Brahman. The second pace that he took covered the heaven. And the third pace, he asked Mahabali that where should I put my third pace? The third step, where can I put? Mahabali could understand and had that realization suddenly that he is facing someone extraordinary. So he begged for excuse. He said that please reveal yourself. And Vamana comes in the form of Lord Vishnu, and then the realization happens in Mahabali. Mahabali says that please put your third step on my head and let me go wherever you want to send me. So that's the story. So in that process, since Mahabali showed self-realization at that moment, Lord Vishnu was happy about it, and Lord Vishnu asked Mahabali to seek a boon. Mahabali said, allow me to meet my citizens once a year, and I want to see the prosperity of my kingdom when I come once a year. And Lord Vishnu granted the boon that Mahabali wanted. And that is the festival of Onam that is celebrated once a year, every year, by the people of that region who believe in this tradition and this folktale. That's the festival of Onam. It's apparently celebrated over 10 days. Today, in our busy world, it's getting celebrated for a day or two. So people celebrate with the festivities, are celebrated with many interesting cultural activities. People are all happy. They deck up their houses, they decorate it with beautiful things, and the farmers, they get their harvest done, and they store the grains that they get from their lands with the prayers, and various kind of merrymaking and competitions happen. People send out a picture of prosperity, happiness, and greeting one another. So that's the festival. Interesting folktale. But what do we learn out of this? In my mind, there are quite a few learnings. The first learning and most important learning is about jealousy. I think in day-to-day lives, we have encountered several scenarios, several situations where we meet someone who is more prosperous than we. It could be a student, it could be a neighbor, it could be someone working in a factory or in an office, it could be an artist, it could be a singer who meets another person who has suddenly become more famous or is doing better. So how do you respond to this? Many of us, inside our heart and mind, become jealous of someone who we consider as our peer and is doing better than us. We become jealous of that person. In this folktale, the gods become jealous of Mahabali. Jealousy as a quality doesn't spare even the gods. That's the learning. And when you become jealous of someone else, what happens to you? You make mistakes like the gods in this case do, and make a kind of a false case. Thankfully, this particular folktale teaches us about the bad part of being jealous of someone else. The second teaching that I see here is about the ego. Mahabali was becoming egoistic, was not willing to listen to others' advice. When this dwarf Brahmin comes, a Vamana, comes and asks for 3 steps or 3 paces of land, his guru, Shukracharya, tries to advise Mahabali not to agree to this, but Mahabali won't listen to the guru's advice. Mahabali says, I am true to my words. I am the great giver in this world. Nobody can match my generosity. Once I have given a word, I stand true to those words, and that is my identity. I am not letting it go. But I think this is the false identity that he was building about himself. So that was the ego. If somebody becomes egoistic, then downfall is guaranteed. Then the third thing is about listening to advice of others, paying heed to, paying attention to the advice which is being available. Here in this folktale, Shukracharya was giving the advice. He even did not evaluate this. He did not want to pay heed to this. If he would have evaluated that why should a dwarf Brahmin suddenly appear in his kingdom, in his court, and asking not for gold, not for food, not for rice, not for grains, but for just 3 pieces of land? Was it not a very, very unique kind of an ask? This ask itself should have told him that there is something else hidden in it, and he should not have agreed for it. Ladies and gentlemen, my dear young children who are listening to this folktale, I described 3 lessons. One about jealousy, second about ego, third about paying attention to what's happening, the advice, the words of others. I hope you enjoyed this story and are willing to spread this amongst many others. I'm sure this helps us become stronger and better people. I look forward to our future conversations. Thank you very much.